This is CNN Breaking News.
We have breaking news, and I want to bring in Barbara Starr. She is at the Pentagon. Barbara, this is about U.S. efforts, right, to try to rescue James Foley, the American journalist who was gruesomely executed by ISIS fighters in Iraq.
Actually, in Syria, Brianna, we have an extraordinary revelation by the Obama administration in the last few minutes. Earlier this summer, U.S. Special Forces, several dozen of them, landed inside Syria for the first time we know of it. U.S. combat boots on the ground inside Syria in an attempted hostage rescue of James Foley and several other hostages being held by ISIS. The U.S. Special Forces, these were the most senior special forces the U.S. has on the level of Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, the troops, the commandos we have seen spring into action so many times before. They had intelligence. They went to a site in Syria, that site location not being disclosed. They came in by helicopter, several dozen of them. They were backed up in the air by combat aircraft, by intelligence and surveillance aircraft, keeping an eye on them at all times. When they got to this facility, they engaged ISIS fighters on the ground. We are told they killed several of them. We are told one of the Special Forces personnel was wounded, no U.S. personnel killed, but when they got to the site, none of the hostages were there. Very sad news on that front. I can tell you that the administration is indicating they had intelligence that they would be there. They were going after a particular part of the ISIS network that they believed was holding Foley and other hostages. They had some very specific information. They are not saying how they developed that information. We know it is public information that other hostages that have come out of Syria have been able to report some details of their circumstances while they were being held. This information exceptionally sensitive because there are certainly still many people being held inside Syria against their will. The administration acknowledging it because several news media outlets clearly were onto the story, but offering very scant details other than this extraordinary development that U.S. military personnel were inside Syria earlier this summer. That is about as dangerous as it gets. The Assad regime forces clearly would have attacked the Americans if they were there. Any number of Syrian factions, including ISIS, would have attacked the Americans if they knew they were there. This is just about as dangerous as it possibly gets for U.S. commandos. Brianna?
The heroism of that attempt and the heartbreak that they were no longer at that site. Stand by for me, Barbara. We're going to get more details coming to us from the White House. I want to bring in our White House correspondent, Michelle Kaczynski. She is on Martha's Vineyard where the president is vacationing. Michelle, what are you learning?
Right, this is a lot to come out in a short period of time. I mean, we just heard from the national security team not long ago. We weren't asking about this specifically because we didn't know about it yet, but asking about any attempts made or any specific threats known against James Foley's life in the recent past or beyond. And all they said at that time was that they used every tool in their disposal to try to gain information about Foley's whereabouts, about his condition, and to find him and bring him home, never mentioning this rescue attempt. So what they have said right now is that earlier this summer, the president authorized an operation to attempt the rescue of American citizens, plural, who were kidnapped and held by ISIL, which is their word for ISIS, against their will in Syria. The president authorized action at this time because it was the national security team's assessment that these hostages were in danger with each passing day in ISIL custody. The U.S. government had what we believed was sufficient intelligence, and when the opportunity presented itself, the president authorized the Department of Defense to move aggressively to recover our citizens. Unfortunately, that mission was ultimately not successful because the hostages were not present. And then they go on to say that given the need to protect the military's operational security, they're not going to give any more details about what exactly transpired during that attempt. Brianna?
All right, Michelle Kaczynski there with the president. Thank you so much. Joining me now, retired